The 179th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been, there ever will be.
Nate Humphrey hands King Rice the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Down off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered by Vinny.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national dadgum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. This is your host, Josh Marlowe, joined by Anthony Pagnotta, who is on the phone with me tonight. Originally, when I thought I'd be recording a podcast on Monday, we would be recapping either a Carolina victory or a Carolina defeat to the Miami Hurricanes. Instead, we have to come on here and talk about neither, as that game was postponed nearly 2 hours before the game was supposed to play. After a video earlier in the day surfaced on Twitter and really social media of Armando Bacot and Day'Ron Sharpe partying Saturday night after the win over Duke. Of course, there was no social distancing involved, and there was no mask wearing, raising concerns about COVID being contracted within those two guys, which then, of course, would spread within the team in Miami. Rightfully so, didn't feel comfortable playing tonight's game. Buddy, we talked about in the preview, when we previewed the Miami game, this was a big chance for Carolina to build some momentum. You know, you're back at home for the first time since January 23rd, and we stressed a lot about how this would be a good measure for them on how they handle success. They proved less than 24 hours after beating Duke, they don't know how to handle success with the partying and stuff like that, and that, of course, results in this game being postponed. Just your initial thoughts about the postponement, and then we'll really dig into what this postponement means for Carolina moving forward.
Well, I mean, first of all, the notion that Miami just canceled this game because they were scared is a dumbass take. Yeah, they're afraid of potentially contracting COVID because a couple of guys that knew what they were signing up for when they started this season decided to go against the rules and regulations and really just the commitment that you made to your teammates and your team, your coaches, everybody in general, and have a party. And for what? It was for 10 to 12 people to come over and hang out in your dorm, something that was completely unnecessary. Now, look, I think the key thing to remember here is that we can't be too hard on these guys because Jay Billis said, look, these guys are adults. Yeah, but these are also college kids. This is something that happens in college. Maybe this didn't happen for Jay Billis. Maybe Jay Billis wasn't a guy that partied. People take different routes when they're in college. Jay Billis doesn't seem like a guy that partied much to me, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, I just don't think that this is not an offense where they should be done for the year. This is not an offense where they should, have their scholarships removed. They should be arrested, whatever. It's not that serious. But at the same time, like I said, you knew coming into the season that you were making this commitment. This was what came along with playing basketball, playing really a team sport during COVID-19. Every sport on campus has taken this oath. And you know that you're supposed to hold yourself accountable and supposed to hold your teammates accountable for keeping yourself safe during these times. I think the thing that's, just most disappointing about this is that, these are two guys that when you look at their level of play on the court, when you look at the impact that they've had on the season, just in general, they are looked at as leaders by how they played on the court this season. So to see them being the ones that end up getting in trouble for this and basically are to blame for the reason that this game got postponed.
Yeah.
It's saddening because you really felt like some of these guys were starting to come into their own. They were starting to show that they could be leaders, and now you're taking a step back. And, one of the points that, you brought up and that I know, we're going to talk about here tonight is the fact that you wonder what kind of effect this has on the team as a whole. Is this a step back? Because this could create a divide in the locker room. I think this is going to be on Coach Roy Williams, on Coach Steve Robinson, Hubert Davis, Brad Frederick, all of them, to make sure that this doesn't fray the relationships in that locker room. But it's hard to imagine that some of these guys right now sitting there are not angry at some of their teammates and just scratching their heads saying, why did you guys have to do this? This is something that we knew coming into the year we couldn't do, and yet you guys went against that and did something that you knew was wrong.
Yeah, I feel like we hear a lot about culture in every sport. You hear about the Carolina family when it comes to Carolina basketball and the culture around it. Their culture is about to be tested more so than last year when you were losing games at a record rate, or this year when you were sitting there at 0-2 in the ACC. Their actions have the potential to derail a season which you feel like is going in the positive direction. You've won 7 of 9. You just got the biggest win of the year on the road against your arch rival, with a chance to really build off of that, even with your ACC schedule finishing up really tough. So we're really about to see kind of what this does for Carolina. There's just so many different things that their actions impacted. And it wasn't just, tonight. It's moving forward. But we'll start with tonight. And with the postponement of tonight's game against Miami, as of right now, it doesn't look like that game is going to get made up this week, let alone if it'll be made up the rest of the year. That means, as we're sitting here as recording, Carolina's next game will be on Saturday at Virginia. If that is the case, that means Carolina will have been away from home for over 3 weeks. They last played at home on January 23rd in that win over NC State. That is unheard of, considering the fact that they still played games. They just haven't played at home. We saw Carolina football have some time off during the football season, not on their end, but they were still, they still played some games at home. We've seen a lot of teams in the ACC and around the country that had, layoffs, but still played at least 1 or 2 games at home over a 3 to 4 week span. Right now, it doesn't appear that Carolina will be at home until next Tuesday when they'll host Virginia Tech. We kind of talked after the Duke game that one of the big things about coming off that win was you got to come back and play at home where you're undefeated. Now that's gone. How does this affect their mindset if the next time we see them on the court is against Virginia?
I mean, you got that long layoff. Now you're having to go on the road to I think at this point, we can safely say the best team in the ACC. And a team that looks like they are getting it together to make a run and potentially be one of those, whether it's a 3 seed, I think they'll more than likely be a 2 seed that can come out of the bracket and upset one of those number 1 seeds. I mean, if they do enough things right, they could be a 1 seed once again. And I don't think anybody would be shocked if they are considered one of if not the favorite, to win the national championship because of their head coach, Tony Bennett, and because of the fact that not only are they still playing good defensively, they're still a team that, they're a team that now is starting to score the ball well. And that's the game that you have to play now. I mean, look, this was a chance to be a letdown game against Miami. We were not happy about the fact that it was a short turnaround. We would have liked to have played this game probably tomorrow night, maybe even Wednesday. But now, with this game probably being completely off the schedule, you are going to come off an emotional game against Duke, go on the road against Virginia, and then turn around and come back home and face Virginia Tech. That's not the schedule that you were hoping you would have to face. So, I mean, look, this team, and that's the thing that I think is might get some of these guys a little angry, is the fact that you're sitting there saying to yourselves, man, we were hoping that, maybe if we could get, show that this wasn't a letdown game against Miami, that would get us into a rhythm. We would, only have a 5-day layoff in between the game against Virginia, and we'd be able to get ready to play the Cavaliers. Now your letdown game is a game against a ranked opponent. But I think that's where, now this game against Virginia becomes even more important than it was beforehand.
Right.
And, the thing is even after that, you look at, the fact that even after they play Virginia Tech, then Louisville's next. So this is a brutal 3-game stretch that you thought you were going to get at least a little bit of a break against a beat-up and lesser Miami team than the rest of the ACC. And now it's off the schedule. Now you've got to adjust. And this has turned from a tough part of the schedule to a gauntlet. How can you get through that, I think, is going to be important for this team. And I think that's where you get really concerned about the mindset of this team, because you're going to need a team that is mentally strong, that is confident going into that stretch. And right now, I just don't know if that's how this team is feeling after what just happened over the weekend and what was found out today.
Yeah, now, as you mentioned, let's move into the mindset of the team, because I think that's the most important thing right now for us as fans and everyone really around the country wants to gauge what's Carolina's mindset. With the way that they're playing this year, with the bubble-like setup where, they're staying in hotels, guys aren't seeing their families, and they're giving up basically their social life to be able to play basketball, came a level of trust that you were building, that you were staying, you're doing things the right way, you were staying safe, and all that. After this weekend, whatever level of trust you have built, it's gone, or at the minimum, it's fractured, and maybe because of the Carolina family and the culture that Roy Williams brings to the program, it's repairable, but it's not going to be repaired overnight. And now, granted, these are two younger guys. Armando Bacot is a sophomore. Day'Ron Sharp is a freshman. But you only have seniors really in Garrison Brooks and Andrew Platek, and then upperclassmen in Leaky Black. How concerned are you about Carolina's team culture coming out of this mess?
Well, I think that even though you mentioned that you've only got 3 senior leaders, we saw them earlier in the year after Carolina started 0-2 in the ACC. We saw that group sort of step up and show that they could be leaders. This is going to be a time where it's going to be key. I talked about, look, the coaches are going to – there are going to be some hearts-to-hearts probably over the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Where there are going to be some guys that are probably really frustrated, and rightfully so. But they're going to need to talk this out. The coaching staff is going to be the ones that are going to have to hold them together. But you're also going to need a guy like Garrison Brooks, who not only is a senior on this team, is a front court member with these two guys, to sort of hold this team together, keep the glue together. And, I think that, that's going to happen. I think, we talked about Andrew Platek. He was pretty much the definition of a glue guy. I think that you're going to see, him and Leaky Black also as guys that are going to step up. And, who knows? I mean, this could work either way. this could be a rallying moment where